Julie Scott, since the year 2000, you have been the Grand Master and President of AMROC, which stands for the Ancient Mystical Order of the Rose Cross, the world's largest Rosicrucian order, which is a mystery school with roots dating back to 1614. You are also the Executive Director of the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum in San Jose, which is home to the largest collection of Egyptian artifacts on exhibit in North America. That is quite the resume, and I'm really, really glad to have you on today.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
You know, I've been very, very excited to talk to you because, on this channel we do a lot of discussions about consciousness and meditation and, being an evolved spiritual being. And that seems to be what the Rosicrucians are about, right?
Well, our goal is to know ourselves better so that we can contribute to the evolution of consciousness. So as each individual sees where we may have some rough spots, it gives us a chance to improve what we want to present to the world, how we want to be in the world. And again, that then contributes to our society and to everyone.
That's really interesting because, we talk about these things a lot. How, it's kind of like an energy that connects everybody, right? And that's kind of how, like with the Rosicrucians, we want to raise the consciousness of everybody, and it's there. And there is an idea of a universal connection with the Rosicrucians, right?
Yes, the founder of the Rosicrucian order, AMORC, often used a symbol that if you have a string of lights and the electricity flows through the cord, each of us is a bulb. And so we all come from that same source, and we reflect our personalities different, our lifetimes differently. We might be a blue bulb or a green bulb, but we all have that same source.
The Rosicrucians are a mystery school, right? And, these things date back to antiquity. Like there were the Pythagoreans, the Neoplatonists, and what were the Eleusinian mysteries, And then there are origins even further back than that, like to dynastic Egypt. Now, how did the Rosicrucians fit in all that? Because I know, you've got the largest Egyptian museum in the world, and, how does it go back to those times?
Well, we have just to clarify for the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum, we have the largest collection of authentic Egyptian artifacts in Western North America. Right. So in Western North America, we have the largest collection on display. And our connection is that there is a thread of mysticism that can be traced back to the mystery schools in ancient Egypt. As you mentioned, they were perpetuated by the Pythagoreans and people who contributed through the Hermetic tradition. So these are ancient traditions, and they were allowed more and less to be able to practice their beliefs in ancient times. Whatever the dominant culture was, would either not allow them to practice their tradition, so they'd have to go underground, or there were times when they could practice very openly. So there were these committed mystics over hundreds of years and even thousands of years back to the ancient Egyptians who kept this wisdom alive, and again, sometimes they had to do it secretly.
I like that you said how there was a time where it had to be practiced in secrecy because, there was, one of them, the famous ones was the Eleusinians, right? The Eleusinian mystery schools. And, they were one of the oldest. They lasted until, 400 years after Christ. And they said they were killed off by the Roman Emperor Theodosius. So to hide the wisdom, the mystery schools started to, or maybe they always did this, I'm going to find out from you, but to hide the wisdom in symbolism, right? How does symbolism get involved in the Rosicrucians? Because I know even like the Rose Cross itself it means many different things. So how does that all relate?
Well, the symbolism wasn't only to keep the tradition secret, it also was to speak to another aspect of our being, usually the subconscious mind. And in the Rosicrucian teachings, we learn that to connect with the subconscious, we must use symbols. And when the subconscious communicates with us, it uses symbols. So symbols are used for that purpose, and it's beyond language, it's beyond just an intellectual knowing.
You talk about your mind communicates to you in symbols, because I forget, who exactly one of when they were analyzing dreams, maybe it was Freud back then, where they came up with the idea of, your brain talks to you in symbols. But this goes back even further with the Rosicrucians, because the Rosicrucians have been saying this, for now hundreds and hundreds of years. So when you say that your mind communicates to you in symbols, can you give an example? Like how do you mean it? Is it like when you have a dream, or is it like in how what do you mean by that?
It can be through dreams or through intuition or a feeling. So when we have our objective consciousness that we perceive through our five senses, and then we have much greater consciousness. And often we're focused on the five senses. So when we want to tap into that expanded awareness, we don't use the five senses. It comes to us typically through symbols that express in a symbol more developed and deeper meaning.
Yeah, I've heard you say this before too. That when your brain communicates to you, or when whatever you want to call it, when the universe communicates to you, or however you define it, it takes it goes through a reference, like a Rolodex of images that you have, and displays that, and it's up to you to kind of communicate or interpret what that is. Is that true? Is that what you mean by that?
Well, it's what has meaning to us. So for Rosicrucians, we don't ask other people to interpret our dreams. We see what makes sense to us. And this also goes the other direction, that if there's something that here's an example. If we want to manifest something in our life, so we visualize that and we connect with the feeling and us walking through that experience in our mind's eye, and then it activates that into manifestation. There's the field of all potential. Anything that can manifest in the world, or anything that will manifest in the world, exists as potential on another plane. So we don't talk that plane into giving us what it is that we desire. We activate it through seeing an image, through seeing symbols of what it is that we want to experience in our lives.
See, that is very fascinating, because again, this is something that's been going back, again, hundreds of years, thousands of years perhaps, this thinking. And I don't know if are you familiar with remote viewing, or the study in precognition and the way this started, and doing research on this. It was shown like early in, I guess, maybe 50, 60 years ago, when they were studying precognition in the Soviet times in Russia. They found the people that were best at this are the people that are able to keep an image of it in their mind the longest. To keep a clear image. And that was a thing that let things like telepathy and precognition take place. What does that mean to Rosicrucians? Because I know in Rosicrucians, this is something that you practice too. You practice the art of developing your psychic ability, ESP, or intuition, whatever you want to call it.
That's a part of it. I wouldn't say that's our main focus. More than that, we would visualize to help others. We would visualize our community thriving. We would visualize someone who may need metaphysical aid. We would see them as a radiantly healthy person.
Yeah, but what I mean by that is like, how do the Rosicrucians view, visualization? Like what, what is it about visualizing that gives you the ability to make these things, happen? Whether it is, thinking about somebody else that you're trying to help or the community as a whole, because these are things that are talked about a lot, creative visualization. But what does that mean to the Rosicrucians, and why is it important? Like, how does it work?
It works again when we connect with a frequency. So everything exists in potential, and the power of our thoughts can activate something into existence in the world. So we attune with the vibration of what it is we want to manifest, and that could be a thing, or it could be excellent health, or a repair in a relationship. So we attune with that. And for Rosicrucians, there are the usual dimensions of space. So we have height, depth, and width. And then there's also the vibrational frequency of a thing. So whether it's a table or whatever it is, it vibrates at a particular frequency. And when our mind attunes with that, it activates it into existence.
And so, is that why visualization is so important? Is because that's raising or lowering your vibration to what it is that you exactly want? Or is it the feeling that you get from, let's say you want something very bad, or not even just for you, but just in general. But is it the feeling, or is it the actual image itself that you're trying to focus on?
It's a combination, and it's interacting with the image that we have. So it's feeling an emotion, and often we also use certain sounds that project that image, that connection of vibrations into the physical world. So the more feeling that is involved in visualization, the more effective it is. The more emotion. So, if you feel what it's like when you help your community or you help someone, you see yourself in that situation, and you see others being helped.
And so it is okay. So it is more like it is more the feeling. It's more the emotion, the human emotion that kind of connects to the universe on this other kind of dimension, or however it's considered. So I guess I should take it back, because maybe we're skipping a step here. Because this is all part of mysticism, right? And when you want to become a Rosicrucian and seek out this, you're really seeking to be what it is like a mystic, have a mystic life. And what is that? Like, how do you guys define that there? What is a mystic?
Well, not everyone seeks the Rosicrucian order because they want to be a mystic. Everybody has a different purpose. For me, I met someone. She was just an acquaintance. I didn't know that she had been a Rosicrucian for 50 years, and she was a really good role model. I saw her in a stressful situation, and she behaved in a way that I would have wanted to behave. So she stayed so centered in a stressful situation. And I wasn't, when I wanted what she had. I wanted to be like her, and I wanted what she had. So I wouldn't even say that my first interest was I want to be a mystic. It's I want to have that kind of presence. And that's more about like this, our vibrations and what we resonate with. So I think a lot of people are interested in mysticism, and they seek and find the Rosicrucian order or another mystical organization. And I think that's always it's always a couple of things: that people want to know themselves better, and that they want to, again, to contribute to the raising of consciousness. They want to develop personally, and they want to connect with the mysteries of life. They want to understand the mysteries of life. So once my friend served as that model for me, then I realized, wow, there are all these other opportunities to learn on subjects like, all right, I'm part of something much bigger. We are all connected, and my actions contribute to the vibrations around me.
And when was it that you finally had that moment where you said, you know what, this is having a real impact on my life. Like I feel this to be so true right now. Everything that I learned here in my studies with the Rosicrucians, I'm feeling it manifest in my life. But when was the moment for you? When did that happen?
It began really with the very first lessons that I studied. The Rosicrucian teachings include a lot of meditations and exercises, and they produce very practical results. So there were synchronicities in my life. There were deep meditative experiences right at the very beginning. So again, I was attracted to the Rosicrucian order because someone who was a role model for me was a Rosicrucian. And then I realized, wow, this is much bigger than I realized.
Yeah, because when you talk about too, like, the knowledge that you're getting, you hear this said in like the ancient, mystic writings. They call it the great arcanum, right? Like profound truth, universal knowledge, So you talk about like these different vibrations and different things in the universe, but what are those things? Like, what else is there? So, like you mentioned before, with if you're trying to attract something, right? There's a certain you put a certain vibe out there, right? So what is it that what else is there? What encompasses all of the kind of universal knowledge, let's say, that you guys are seeking or connecting to?
Well, we practice certain meditation techniques that change our brain waves and really give us a deep feeling of tranquility. We also study some of the laws of nature, and we understand that there are better times to do things. So instead of fighting when to do a certain thing, we understand that there are times that are better to do that, so that we have the support of the universe. It's helping us move along rather than fighting against it.
And when you talk about things like times that I'm assuming you're talking about like astronomy and astrology and the movement of the cosmos, and this all connects back to the human body, right? Is that what you mean by that? It's like kind of like the macrocosm and the microcosm. Like we're all kind of linked, and that's why it's beneficial to, let's say, start a business during a certain time of the year, right? Like how does that work when you say that there's a good time? Like, because I know the spring equinox, the fall equinox, these are very important times to Rosicrucians and in the mystic teachings in general. So can you explain a little bit about that? Because that's very interesting to people.
Well, there are a number of examples. At Rosicrucian Park, we plant our plants according to the cycle of the moon. And there's a practical reason for that. The moon, of course, affects the water table. So there are times of the month where it's best to plant a new plant because it will help it to establish because of the water table. Then there are seasons of the year where spring is a time for growth and rebirth. So it's all of nature supporting a time for renewal. And then there's the winter season where it's a time to go within and recuperate. So
it really doesn't have too much to do with like when we see like, okay, well, we got the Orions or Sirius is on this side, and it's having some sort of connection with our physical bodies. It really doesn't have anything to do with that. Like, because we like to think that there is some sort of connection between us and everything going on in the cosmos. So is there anything like that going on as well?
Well, there's definitely a connection with solar cycles and lunar cycles. We don't study astrology in the Rosicrucian lessons,
Hmm.
and we do study how things like the seasons affect us. We're greatly affected by the season. We're greatly affected by the cycles of the moon, and we can experience that just by watching tides with the moon.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know that there are certain, like, kind of more, concepts that it's harder for people to grasp that the Rosicrucians do. Like, I was on the website. One of them is, and I like this because this goes back to more of the things that we are learning now with people studying in precognition and seeing again with the remote viewing, things of that nature, and they're kind of seeing little connections that some of these mystical traditions have been saying for a long time already, and it's now just getting proven. And one of them is the illusory nature of time and space. That's one that I see there. So can you explain, like, what does that mean to the Rosicrucians? Because I know, like, even in quantum physics now, they have quantum retrocausality, which they proved, where the future almost has a micro little impact on the past. They can see a connection, which is kind of gluing things together. What they've been saying this stuff. Egyptian priests have been were saying this. Who knows how many thousands of years ago. So explain what that means, though, to the Rosicrucians from that perspective.
There's a very practical example. If we are looking forward to something, it seems like it takes longer for it to arrive. If we're dreading something, it seems like it's here before we know it. So it's the way that we think about time. And from a Rosicrucian perspective, we are beings of energy swimming in an ocean of energy or consciousness. And that exists beyond time and space. When we're born into this world of time and space. And some people use the example that it's like putting on a headset, but we're still these beings of energy.
It's cool too, because again, this is something else that is been a saying, from since ancient times, that there was there's something between us. It's not just empty space there, and now they're starting to prove that. They've already proven in quantum mechanics, they said that there's electromagnetic field exists between us, and maybe that's the reason why these things like ESP and intuition exist, and these are things that again, these mystery schools have known. Why do you think that is? How do you think that they originally came up with these ideas? I mean, because a lot of it is too coincidental. They can't get this many things right. It makes you think, what else have they been saying that we should maybe take a second look at and give a little more credence to? So, what, in your opinion, why is that? How did they first come about with these ideas?
I believe that the people in the ancient mystery schools had such profound experiences that they literally tapped into these other planes of existence. They see things that are patterns that are coming up now beyond what could be known with our physical senses. The ancient Egyptians described a magical realm called the Duat, D-U-A-T, the Duat. And they believed that people traveled there every night while they were asleep, and they traveled there after they passed on from this life, and it was the place of pure potential, and they could interact with it. So the ancient Egyptians didn't see empty space. They saw energy all around them, and it would seem that they had to have experienced that, I would guess, through deep meditative experiences.
The Rosicrucians, they started in the 1600s, right? But they were studying these texts from, again, they have connection back to ancient dynastic Egyptian times. So, in the opinion of the Rosicrucians, how old were the Egyptians? And we look and we go to school and they teach us that that dynastic Egyptians, it was a few thousand years. I think maybe the Great Pyramid was only 3,000 years old or something like this. But the Rosicrucians believe something else, or the mystical teachings will tell you something else, just because of the way that the structure of some of these sites were made, right? Because they were made to align with some of the things in the cosmos, like Orion's belt. So in the opinion of the Rosicrucians, how old was the Egyptian culture? How far back does this knowledge really go?
In the traditional history of the Rosicrucian order, which is not isn't the same as chronological history, but in our sacred stories, there was a land, and it could have been Atlantis, where the people knew that there was a cataclysm coming, and they sent envoys to different parts of the world, and some of those people with sophisticated knowledge that came from Atlantis went to Egypt. So no one knows exactly when that would have been.
So I like that you said the cataclysm, because again, this kind of correlates back to. I'm sure you're familiar with the story of when Plato talked about when the first heard the story of Atlantis, and he said that there was a cataclysm, and he dated it back to about 10,500 years ago, which would correlate to right now, which would be called the Younger Dryas impact, where there was a meteor or something I think hit that caused this great flood. So the knowledge is, it certainly is, ancient. And, one of the things that I noticed that I see as part of the tradition is, Pythagoras taught that his students couldn't learn anything until they first learned to be silent, because he said that was the first step in learning how to have actual thoughts, to be meditative. So I know you said that this is a big part of the Rosicrucians is to meditate. And, what is it about meditation? And maybe even the type of meditation that you do, because we do a lot of we've had a lot of people on here talking about different types of meditation, like transcendental meditation, and there's the Vedic meditations. What is it about the type of meditation that you do, or just the importance of meditation in general, that helps you reach these areas of enlightenment for your brain?
Well, meditation techniques change our brain waves and create a feeling of expanded awareness, a feeling of tranquility. So it's part of our being that we're set up to, through evolution, we've evolved to prepare for threats. So we're watching with our different nervous systems, preparing for threats, to fight or to flee. And when we are able to get beyond that, then we can go deeper and experience a different level of our being. And it's also not having distractions, not having things compete for our attention. So Rosicrucians, we set up what we call our sanctum. We have a little place that it can be a corner of a room or an entire room, that all we do there is our mystical work. We don't we don't study our lessons and do our exercises and meditations on a couch or at the kitchen table. We have a place that is just used for our mystical work. And so when we walk in, the vibrations feel different. Our intention is different. We've set the conditions to help us go deeper.
See, again, so you drop like certain words there that you just want to expound upon. I know it seems like second nature to you, but something like setting your intentions, right? So you say this, and that's a very important thing, right? Because again, it goes back to when you were talking about before with maybe kind of having that connection to the universe. So why is it so important? I hear this word said a lot. Why is it so important to set your intentions? What does that really mean to the Rosicrucians? Because now in passing, people say this. You have to set your intentions, but what does it truly mean, and how does that connect to you and the divine?
We were talking earlier about manifesting. So we are manifesting all the time. Sometimes it's really sloppy. We're thinking about things, getting angry, getting caught up in things, and then we wonder why we have challenges in our lives. Or we're not aware of certain cycles and that there are better times to do things. So it's setting the intention that I want to connect with an energy bigger than just myself. We're setting the intention, I want my life and my energy to contribute to expanding positive energy in the world, as well as expanding my own awareness.
So, again, a lot of this sounds like things that we've heard. I don't know if I've tried to do research on this and find out like the origins of a lot of these sayings, because we've heard a lot of them before, and I think a lot of people, maybe they've either taken from Hermeticism or were a Rosicrucian and kind of expanded on that, because something like the law of attraction. Remember, years ago there was a thing. There was that it was The Secret was popular, right? But the law of attraction is something that Hermeticists or Rosicrucians have practiced for a very long time, right? How does this work? Because I know you say that there's no such thing as luck. I saw you have a fantastic video on this. What do you mean by that?
Well, we manifest what we're holding in our thoughts, and sometimes it may not be something that we want. Sometimes it may be good for our personal growth, and sometimes it may be that we are just caught up in material things and not really paying attention to what it is that we want to manifest in our life.
So when you say that, I like that you said that you could be paying attention to something that is not really good. Because I always say this, and again, this is just another saying that people have said it forever. When you're worrying, you're just praying for your own demise, right? Because you're kind of attracting that into your life, right? Because it's just dwelling in your brain. Now, how does that work? Like, tell people, like, how should people really focus their mind so that they don't fall into that negativity trap? Because I feel like as human beings, we're predisposed to want to worry, right? You're predisposed to think about, I got this bill due next week, or I got to work tomorrow, right? But really, when Rosicrucians say don't do this, right? And it's kind of part of the reason why you meditate to begin with, right? So how do you deal with that? Because it's easier said than done, right?
It's definitely easier said than done, and we can pause. So if we're facing challenges, we can pause and see if what we're doing is working. And we can evaluate what we have control over and what we don't have control over. So if we are worrying about something that is completely out of control, if we just pause, we realize that that just doesn't make sense if it's beyond my control. So then we look at, what can I do? Is there anything that I can do in this situation that I do have control over, or at least partial control?
Is it just identifying, that you're in that that you're doing it again, and is this do eventually you learn not how to do this when you keep on your meditation and do the Rosicrucian teachings kind of guide you through this? Because this is one of those things of living a better life, right? Because these are some of those laws of the universe that you were talking about.
The Rosicrucian teachings tell us that there are two things that really affect us that we don't always recognize. One is overwhelm, that there's just so much coming at us and the result, how we react to that is we shut down. And the other is distractions, where so many things are trying to get our attention. So the key for both of those is to pause and just to look at the situation and examine, am I in overwhelm right now? Is that why I just overreacted? Or am I being distracted from what I really want and from what I'm able to do?
The thing is a lot of people, they kind of try to seek this kind of, I would say spiritual understanding, or want to try to manifest. and they always want to try to manifest like more physical things, like more money, right? It kind of comes from like a greed perspective, and that kind of seems like an impure way to live, right? Is it wrong that people do that? Like let's say we're wanting to, again, use the law of manifest something, right? Set your intentions on, and I want to get rich, okay? Is that the right thing to do? Or is there really a more like sensible way that you're supposed to approach this? Maybe one that helps other people instead for something like that to happen. Like, how does that work? Because I know there's a give and take in the universe, right? So what is it? Correspondence or something?
There are very specific instructions given on how to manifest things in the Rosicrucian lessons, and one is that we see the effect that it can have. So we're encouraged not to say, I want $1 million or I want that particular car. Instead, we look at what that would bring into the world. So if I want $1 million in order to start an organization that can help others, or if I want a new car because that will make it less stressful for me to be able to go to my job and serve others. So the Rosicrucian teachings are very specific about don't say a particular amount of money, and not even like look at the condition that you want. We don't tell the universe how to give it to us. And another aspect is that we always look at how it can help more than just us. So anything we ask for should be of benefit to not just us alone.
You have to give to receive? Is that what it is?
Well, it's that we have an opportunity to share our gifts and our talents. So the focus would be on us sharing that, and then we would feel fulfilled by doing that. So to see how we can be of the most service, even if you're paid a great salary, you can still be providing the best service based on our particular skills.
So it's kind of like having a mindset of abundance, right?
Well, it's definitely having a mindset of abundance and getting in the flow with that. And an example that's used is if we want to become an architect, to start doing that, we can take a class in architecture. We can get a subscription to magazines about architecture. We are now creating a relationship with architecture. And then the universe supports that because our thoughts are about what we want to do with architecture.
It does make sense when you say this, and a lot of these sayings are they from the Rosicrucians, or is it just from in general, just again like universal truths that we know, like for example the mindset of abundance. I hear this in the you see it in the Rosicrucian teachings, but again it's like a it's now becoming like a cliche, like you have to give to attract, right? Are these all thoughts that you just originated back in Egypt and handed down for through the time?
I don't know when they originated, but it is definitely the idea of having a flow rather than holding on tightly, to open ourselves up to having a flow of energy, and money is energy.
Yeah, and it is, again, it goes back to vibration, right? Matching the vibration that you were saying before, and I noticed this that you do use some of the like in the meditations you use some of the ancient Vedic sounds, right? Like the Om sound, right? And the Rosicrucians knew that these tones, the frequency, actually help the person's body, and this is kind of just science that we're just finding out now. Like I had on a couple of weeks ago, I had on Dr. Alan Evans, and she's the president of the Monroe Institute, right? And they are all focused on sound technology for meditation. And this is something that they just discovered in the 70s. That if you hit certain frequencies, this is actually very good for your body and your brain, right? So how do the Rosicrucians look at those mantras and those sounds? Is it something that's like a healing quality?
It's a healing quality, and it also, a lot of it is based on the endocrine system and our glands. So for Rosicrucians, we believe that there are 12 what we call psychic centers in our being, and all of these are associated with a gland or an organ. And then there's one exception, which is the solar plexus. And so when we focus our attention on those areas and intone vowel sounds, it releases hormones that then send these healing properties into our being. And ancient people were very aware of this, so especially people in the Far East.
So going back to kind of the origins of again the Rosicrucians, and even not even just the Rosicrucians, but the ancient teachings, because there are some great teachings out there. And it seems like, there was a lot of connections early on with like the Gnostics, right? Are Gnostics like an early version of the Rosicrucians?
There are some belief systems of the Gnostics that are perpetuated by Rosicrucianism today. And the primary one is that we don't need an intermediary to have a connection with the divine, or the supreme intelligence, or whatever we want to call it. And there is a thread that goes back to the ancient mystery schools, especially to Egypt, that the deity Thoth was considered to be the keeper of the mysteries. And then as the Greeks became familiar with ancient Egyptian traditions, they transformed Thoth into their deity Hermes. And then Hermes became so powerful, this was such an important tradition, that he became a person who is called Hermes Trismegistus, the 3 times greatest Hermes. This is describing the wisdom of the ancient mystery schools in Egypt, and that tradition going through the Greeks and the Romans and then throughout history. When we hear about the Hermetic tradition, it's perpetuating the ancient Egyptian tradition. So that's the start of the thread, and there were parallel threads throughout time, including alchemist and Kabbalist. So there are these different threads that perpetuated mysteries that were experienced directly, that didn't need someone else to tell us what we were experiencing. It all was about personal experience.
Because and I want to go back to what you said before. You don't need an intermediary to have a connection between you and the divine, right? I mean, it sounds like such a beautiful thought, right? Like everybody has it in them, that kind of that divinity. So I know that H. Spencer Lewis, and I wish we got to talk about him a little bit, because he's got so much great literature out there. He's got a book called the mystical Jesus, right? So is it part of the belief that maybe Jesus was influenced by one of these mystery schools, or is there any knowledge that the Rosicrucians have about him?
Well, H. Spencer Lewis offers that he was an Essene. And certainly there are leaders of different Christian churches that acknowledge that Jesus was a member of the Essene community that was very committed to healing and helping others.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you hear again, like even if you're reading the Bible, you hear some of these same sayings even being said in there, that the Hermeticists even use, even like the you have to give to receive we were talking about before. Like these are just teachings that have been around from the ages, and I feel like there's a lot of Eastern thought that was kind of melded in too, because like the concept of like yin and yang, right? Like this is or karma, right? This is something that the Rosicrucians believe in, right? Like I know that there's something called divine justice. Okay, sounds very scary, divine justice. But explain like what are the ideas behind divine justice and karma. Explain the Rosicrucian thinking on that, because it is kind of Eastern thinking, don't you think?
I think a lot of people associate the concept of karma with the East, and from a Rosicrucian perspective, it's cause and effect. It's if you do certain things, it leads to certain consequences, and it may have been from a long time ago, from experiences that we weren't even aware of. So it's knowing that we set certain energy or actions into motion, and they produce a result, and it can be good or it can be not beneficial.
Now, I know that you just said that it could have been a long time ago. You mean in past lifetimes, right? Because it is believed that that reincarnation is real, right?
The Rosicrucian teachings present information about the possibility of reincarnation. So each Rosicrucian member can make up their mind on their own. I know many Rosicrucians who believe in reincarnation, and some believe that we have like an encapsulated soul personality that exists from lifetime to lifetime. Other Rosicrucians believe that we're reincarnated, but we're kind of mixed back in to the energy and come out not as the exact continuation of a person. And there are some Rosicrucians who reincarnation doesn't make sense for them. That's a great thing about the Rosicrucian philosophy. Part of our training is to question everything and see if it makes sense to us.
I think that's the best part about it, is there's no dogmatism there, right? Like it really has roots in philosophical thinking and thought and rationality. And it has a very open-mindedness into all the possibilities that could be. So it really is a great thing. But the thing is it still that you hear this one of the old sayings, okay, the Hermetic sayings, like the lips of wisdom are closed except to the ears of understanding, which is meaning like you're not supposed to share the wisdom. Is that also part of a Rosicrucian teaching, that you're not supposed to go and tell everybody else the knowledge, like keeping that kind of mystery school tradition alive?
Well, it's a very practical thing. It's if you are on a bus, you're not going to start talking to someone about deep philosophical subjects that you don't know if they're interested in, you don't know if they have the foundation. So the Rosicrucian teachings are presented gradually. So in the early degrees, we're introduced to every subject that we're going to learn about and experience, and then we come back in a spiral and practice and experience those again from different angles. So it's not helpful to speak with someone from a deep philosophical perspective if they're not interested in it, or if they don't have the same background and they don't have the context. But there are no secrets that can't be shared. It's just a matter of being discreet and appropriate.
Well, I could talk to you all day. You're like an endless source of
you're so nice. Thank you.
Mystical knowledge. How long did it take for you to acquire all this, knowledge? I didn't even get to start to ask you about Egypt and all the artifacts that you have there, because that could be another hour on its own. But how long did it take for you to, before you finally got, felt like you were comfortable in the teachings of the Rosicrucians where now you can just rattle them back off without even thinking about it?
Well, every Rosicrucian knows that we are all students. So I am still learning, and I learn so much from other Rosicrucians, from brand new members, from mystics from other traditions. I'm learning all the time and am a very humble student.
Yeah, well, it's so good to talk to you. So I'm so glad that we got to have this talk. And so should I just, where should we send people if they want to learn more about the Rosicrucians or join? Because I know the AMRC is the biggest Rosicrucian order in the world, right?
Yes. So our website's rosicrucian.org. And if anybody is in San Jose, California, definitely come by Rosicrucian Park with the Rosicrucian Egyptian Museum, and that we have so much there. Our Peace Garden and Labyrinth and our research library. There's just our beautiful tranquil gardens. So there are a lot of ways to learn about the Rosicrucian order. And again, the website is rosicrucian.org.
That's so cool. I'm definitely going to visit. I'll be up in San Jose not that long. So this is fantastic. Thank you so much, Julie.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.